Hey guys, welcome to Bro Talk. In this episode, we're going to be talking about free will. Now, this is a very heavily debated topic, right? It is, there's so many different perspectives, so many points of views of if we actually have free will or not. Is there a contradiction to it or not? I think Aldous and me are going to have two different point of views. We're definitely going to get into like the philosophical and the theological ways of viewing free will. So if you guys are interested, please come and join our conversation. We'll be more than happy to debate this. And please comment, like, and subscribe to the video. All right, Dr. Aldous J. Sanchez.
That's correct, sir. Capital D. Okay.
Free will.
Yes.
Free will is such an interesting topic. I remember when I went out to Colorado to go see you, in your new home.
Yes.
That I forgot how we got to this topic, but we started talking about free will. And do we actually have free will? Which was something I was like confused about because obviously you as a Jewish man, right, or someone who follows Judaism, explains to me how we do technically have free will.
Correct.
But at the same time, I was debating on like, how do we have free will if an almighty God can see what's ahead, right?
Correct.
Or in a sense, what's predetermined, or what is already going to happen. We just don't happen to know it. Therefore, it could seem as free will, right? And obviously, we're going to get into that. But I did want to go into a little bit first into the philosophical points of views when it comes to free will. So there's the libertarian way of viewing free will, right? And the libertarian way is when people have real control over their choices and their decisions and are not fully determined by past events or outside forces, right? Basically, humans can make independent choices, while things like genetics and environments may influence decisions, they do not completely determine them. Now, do I happen to believe that's true? Of course. If we're viewing it from like a secular point of view and not adding any theological into it, I believe we have free will, and every decision you're going to make is going to decide how your life is going to be shaped. Right? Now we could get into the little bits of these things, like when it comes to moral responsibility. So there was a question here that I was able to search, and I would like to see what you have to say about this. If people do not have free will, how can we hold them accountable for their actions? But we do have free will, therefore we do hold people accountable for their actions, correct?
Okay.
Right? Like, for example, in courtrooms and everyday life, we assume people can choose between right and wrong. So in a sense, we do have free will. And through personal experiences, we feel like we're making choices every day.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, that is basically what the libertarian point of view is when it comes to free will.
Which is kind of pro for free will. That's what it sounds like.
Which is 100% pro free will, and I think it does support most of the theological points of views. I think to a certain extent it does. I believe it does with Christianity a lot, and I believe a little bit of Judaism as well. But then the total opposite exists as well, which is determinism. Now, what is determinism? Determinism, it basically says that every action and thought is caused by something before it. Therefore, it leaves no type of room for true freedom. Now, there are different types of determinism, right? If we break down determinism, and breaking it down, one of them is casual determinism, and casual determinism is everything in the in the universe follows laws of cause and effect, meaning all decisions are a result of past events,
Yes.
which can be true in a sense. I believe there's an argument behind it,
Mm-hmm.
because that can also connect to the psychological determinism, which I do believe it happens to be true,
Mm-hmm.
because there are unconscious thoughts or childhood traumas or events that happen in the past that do shape our decisions,
Mm-hmm.
making determinism or psychological determinism true to a certain extent, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
do have like free will, and this is obviously me talking, right? This is like
Mm-hmm.
me thinking what I think about what I was able to study. Um, you do have free will in the decisions you're going to make, but especially if we're as an example, we talk about childhood trauma, it plays a heavy part on the future decision that you can make,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Um, and this is where I believe determinism plays a heavier role, right? Because we're breaking it down in different types of determinism, but the heaviest role that determinism is, which I happen to believe in it a little bit, but at the same time not, is when we get into the theological determinism,
Mm-hmm.
which is that if God is really all knowing and already knows that everything is going to happen, how can we truly have free will?
Mm-hmm.
So I believe I'm stuck in between both, where I do believe we have free will, and I definitely could see why the people that believe in the libertarian type of free will believe in it, because we are accountable for our decisions. But at the same time, there are parts of determinism that have weight
Mm-hmm.
into this argument. And that's for me the psychological and the theological. What do you think?
Okay. So what if I said that you can have a little bit of all of it and it could all be true and still go well with God?
So you're saying that there's determinism and free will at the same time?
I would say, so first of all, I think we have to separate two things. So number one, the fact that things are predetermined. So if things are predetermined, how can we have free will? Which is a theological question, right? So I think we have to separate that, which I'm not going to go into details right now. Later on, I will.
Okay.
But basically, I'm going to say is that when it comes to our lives, a lot of the things that happen in our lives are already predetermined by God, right? Like how tall you're gonna be, how smart or dumb you're gonna be. Are you gonna be wise or foolish? Like your skin color, your eye, the color of your eyes. But so like a lot of these things are already determined. You don't have control over that, as you mentioned.
Right. That's like that has to do with genetics and DNA.
DNA and nature environment, right? But
Right.
when I say free will, I'm talking about the ability to decide what is right and wrong and to choose I'm going to do what's right or wrong, right? Because you might know mentally, you can kind of figure out, I know what's right and wrong, but then you don't, but then you do the opposite. But free will, you having a will is you can decide you know what's right and what's wrong, and then you can take action to do it.
Hmm.
That's what free will is really about, right? So yeah.
But free will at the same time is, it's not only choosing between what's right and wrong. It's, I mean, if we're good at, I'm nitpicking here, but it's,
Mm,
if I want to make a left, I'm going to make a left. If I want to make it right, I'm going to make it right. That's having a free will as well, in a sense. But, and this is why I'm always falling straight into the theological
hmm.
um, way of way of thinking, or challenge, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, that's already technically predetermined.
Of what?
that simple choice of free will, am I going to make a right or left?
Yes, but that's not. I mean, it's not really free will, and I'll tell you why. Because that is a lot more mundane, a lot more detail oriented, and to be honest, a lot of the times our brains just do like mental heuristics, right? Like maybe we're just making the right or left because something influenced us, right? Or like you're not really using free will. Am I gonna make a right or a left? Or do I want a chocolate ice cream today or vanilla ice cream? Right? That's not really using free will. A lot of the times we make
So,
those quick decisions.
so what the hell is it then?
I would say it's like a mix of mental heuristics, which is mental shortcuts, right? That our
Hmm.
brains like to do mental shortcuts. We even spoke about this in a couple episodes ago, right? So, maybe again, I would say so many things could determine that, right? Like for example, maybe you remember what you bought last time, and then you ask yourself quickly, do I feel like having that today? And you make a quick decision, right? It's like, or like,
So
what am I
determinism.
feeling to? Yeah, it's a mix of it, and that's why I said earlier. What if I told you that a little bit of all these things you said is correct, right? Because free will. So according to, and I'll read you a definition by Stanford, right? But according to Judaism, right? We're going to go into a little bit before I go into determinism. A little bit of what Judaism says what free will is. It boils down to you choosing what is right or wrong. So already by that definition, which a lot of Jewish philosophers came to that conclusion, like the Rambam and Rashi and Ramban and so many other famous Jewish philosophers,
Hmm.
right? And we can use certain biblical texts later on if you want to go down that road, right? It's using your free will, your bechira, that's the Hebrew word, bechira
Hmm.
chovshit.
Yeah.
It really is about choosing what is right or wrong and then taking an action for that. That is what truly using your free will is for, right? Now, the mundane matters, I would say it would fall under more of there's a lot of other reasons how we get to those, right? And I was actually going to mention a couple studies that prove what you said about determinism, right? Did you hear about something called the Libet experiment in
I
1983?
1983. Where is it?
Yeah, tell me what you know about that one and the 2008 Soonsta study, which we could talk about
Okay.
too.
Okay. They made an experiment.
Yes,
It's based on neuroscience, right?
correct. Yes,
Um,
yes.
from what it says, brain scans show that the brain starts making decisions before we even are aware of them,
Correct. Yes.
right? So I guess that's what you're basing it on, where like the nuances or like the little stuff into our decisions that are, like you said, are actually not free will.
Mm.
It's something that like our brain has already made a decision of it before we do it, something like that.
So yeah, very close. Yeah. So what's happening is that what they did that by the way, that was a very famous study, revolutionary study, and it showed that
Hmm.
your brain decides before you are aware to make the choice. So in the study, they asked the participants, like for example, to move their wrists, right, whenever they
Okay.
felt like it, while measuring their brain activity. Now, what they found something called, and I have a couple quotes here. They found the readiness potential, which is a brain signal that was linked to the wrist movement, right? And it appeared 300 milliseconds. Now, that's actually not a lot of time, obviously, right?
No.
I think it's less than a second. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But 300 milliseconds, they had the signal in their brain before they were consciously aware to start to move their wrist, right? So the studies show that the brain can start to prepare an action before we decide to do it, right? So I found here something. The quote is this: it is concluded, this is the end of the study,
Hmm.
I just copy and pasted. It is concluded that cerebral initiation, brain initiation of a spontaneous, freely voluntary act can begin unconsciously, that is before there is any subjective awareness that a decision to act has been initiated cerebrally. So basically, before you're aware, hey, I want to move now, your brain will already make the decision according to the study 300 milliseconds before. right? So then people will start to make the jump and say, well, if that's the case, then does the studies, again, this is the question, does the studies suggest that the brain can start preparing an action before we decide to do it subjectively? Because that's what the study was kind of showing. Before I was aware consciously, hey, I want to move my wrist now, subconsciously, I already made the decision I'm going to do it. So you see what I mean? Our brain
Could you
already
stop it?
started. What?
Could you stop it?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, maybe, but the whole point of the study is that this happens before we're subjective, before our subjectiveness, we're aware that we want to do something. Our subconscious already is like, I'm ready to do it. Like I decided I'm going to do it already. Right now, that's one study. The other study, which is also based on neuroscience, and
Hmm.
you tell me what you think about this. It was a study done by Soon, the person, and it was, and basically what it shows that there's brain activity. Brain activity can predict the choice 7 seconds before you know it. So now this was a little bit longer, 7 seconds. So they found that using an fMRI scan, like looking at brain activity,
Hmm.
right, they were able to notice in the prefrontal and the parietal cortex, which is different parts of the brain, they found out that our brains can make simple decisions. Like for example, if I want to press a button with my left or right hand, my brain can already make the decision what I'm going to do a couple seconds before I'm aware that I'm going to do it. And they proved this in 2008.
But
So, yeah,
that's like your subconscious. Or
correct.
no, no, no.
Correct.
But at the same time, it's your conscience talking to you.
Well, first is the subconscious, then is the
First is the
conscious.
subconscious,
Yes.
but 7 seconds, that's a lot. Because if someone's telling me, okay, you have the decision now to make a left or right,
Yeah.
and I didn't know they were going to ask me that question, how
Hmm.
does my subconscious know 7 seconds before what decision I'm gonna make?
Well, listen, I'm not a neuroscientist, but when I did study neuroscience, and
Okay.
when I did study, because we did have to study neuroscience in my grad program, from what I so like for example, let's say you're driving right with like your nice BMW, right, and you know that in a mile from now, you usually right, like let's say, I mean, unless you're looking at, I don't know, like a Google Maps, right,
Hmm.
and you know what to do. But let's say you don't have that, right? And let's say you see a light down the road and you have to make a decision. You're probably not consciously thinking about it because you're like, oh, I still got another mile, or it's a long way down. But subconsciously, your brain is already getting ready. It's like, all right,
I had to make a left or right. Yeah.
I got to make a left or right, right? Also, when you go to the supermarket, right? It's like, are you actively actually deciding, okay, let me go to aisle 13 and then I'll go to 12. I mean, you, unless you prepare ahead of time, but a lot of the times we just go through aisles or whatever. We just make random decisions. But it's not like we're consciously thinking of every single decision we're doing. Because I'll tell you something. If we actually consciously thought about every decision we do, guess what?
Hmm.
We would be fatigued by 10 a.m. already, and we wouldn't be able to work. Right? They say I spoke to someone recently. He's a patient of mine. He has a bachelor's or master's in psychology. He told me during the day we're making at least subconsciously 1,000 decisions, 1,000 decisions subconsciously.
Like right now, I didn't know I was gonna scratch my eye, but I scratched my eye.
But you
So
scratch
maybe
your eye.
that
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
I.
I don't know. Or maybe you have free will. I don't.
No,
But
no, I get it would
yeah,
be mentally exhausting 100% if we thought about every single decision I'm gonna make.
correct. It would be super exhausting and impossible for you to do it. So our subconscious helps us a lot of the times.
Right.
And we spoke about this before, mental heuristics in our brain and the way we think. A lot of times our brain will do shortcuts and our subconscious is helping us making the decisions. Now, these studies are really trying to ask the question, which is like, okay, so if our brain, if we can actually measure objectively that there's signals that in different parts of our brain, right, that will fire before we consciously decide, then is the conscious choice that you're making, is that just an afterthought then? Then in reality, Are you really truly making a conscious decision, or are you just being influenced by your subconscious? So that's really the question they're asking. And these two studies have proven so far that for at least simple decisions, because I don't know
Mhm.
if you realize, they haven't been able to prove this with
Yeah,
more
it's
complicated things,
nothing crazy. Yeah.
right?
So,
But deterministically, we have
mhm.
this so far. So yeah.
So deterministically, in a philosophical way of viewing it,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to simple decisions
Mm-hmm.
and some things that we do as a habit or something that's become part of our nature,
Mm-hmm.
it's those are in a sense not decisions. That's not free will. That's just us, our subconscious telling us to do certain things or to follow something because we've done it so pretty often. Like waking up, drinking a
Mm-hmm.
glass of water, or brushing your teeth, using the bathroom. That's already a subconscious thing that your body naturally wakes up to do. You're
Mm.
not
Uh-huh.
deciding, am I going to do this? Am I going to do that?
So I would say that is a product of our society, because right
Hmm.
in America, you learn since young, brush your teeth. As you said, use the bathroom, drink 2 glasses of water during the day. Like I would say it's a product of society, how you were raised in your family,
Yeah.
right? Maybe some part you're right, your subconscious,
And
and uh-huh.
as you get older, it starts to not become a decision because it just starts to become a habit of thing.
Well, yeah, these things had to become they became habits eventually, so you don't have to think about it anymore,
Yeah.
right? You don't have to think about it anymore. So is that really free will? You're just doing them. Unless you actively maybe you actively go against it. It's like, I don't want to brush my teeth today. For whatever reason, right? Or I don't want to use the bathroom the whole day today, right? But in reality, those decisions we're making, they become habit, they become part of society. So are those decisions really free will? I would say they're more mundane matters, and I would say they're decisions we're making due to nurture or nature, or how we were raised, right?
Hmm.
So is that really a free will decision? Probably not. Maybe it's a mix of maybe a little bit free will, or maybe just nurture, or nature, or societal, how we were raised, or maybe it's just something that's been primed into us, and now we just do it to do it. So it's not really a free will decision anymore, right? Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree. I 100%
Okay,
agree.
but now the question is, but these are small decisions or mundane matters that we're talking about. We're not really talking about evil and good, or what's good or bad,
Right.
or what's better. Like we haven't even hit that yet,
Right,
right?
which is what actually free will is or not,
I would say, according to Judaism and
basically.
potentially Christianity as well, then yeah, I think religion
So
would,
that's
yeah, uh-huh.
that's what we have to focus on, right?
No, but this was good
Um,
too. But I think
no, no,
this was
no.
also good.
This was great. This was great because
Yeah.
obviously we're talking about, like you said, the small stuff, and are those decisions? Are they not decisions? Do they come from things we pick up from our family or societal things, and then start to become habitual things, and therefore we just don't think about it anymore, and it becomes part of our subconscious.
So yeah, so because you said that determinism was decisions we make based on prior cause, you said something like that, right?
The determinism is
Read it to me again.
basically because, yeah, let me read it to you. I
Yeah,
have it
because
ready
I want to say something about
here.
that.
It says that every action and thought is caused by something before it, leaving no room for true freedom.
Yeah, so it's because of a prior cause. What if we think about it? What's a prior cause? It could be your genetics. It could be the environment. It could be the laws of physics, the laws of nature. It could be so many things. So like the brushing your teeth, getting up and using the bathroom, drinking water, that became a habit because of nature, maybe, or how you were raised. So yeah, those
Hmm.
decisions maybe do become deterministic,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah,
But
those small decisions in your life,
yeah,
or the habitual things, become deterministic.
but a lot of people who are atheists, or probably who do believe more in determinism for
Hmm.
everything, they would even say, because I've heard the argument that no, this also applies to even big decisions or morality, right? Or our free will based on how we were raised and who our family or who our family members were, genes, nurture, and so forth.
But I've also heard the question, and now that you bring up morality, if everything is if everything is determined in a
Yeah,
sense, right?
predetermined. Yeah.
Predetermined in a sense, could we hold anyone accountable the for morality?
Hmm. And well, no. If everything was predetermined, we
Right.
cannot hold up anyone. We can't. But
Anyone accountable for any type of incorrect morality?
correct. But that's not the case, right? I mean,
Hmm.
again, from a theological perspective, and you even mentioned the legal court system, right? They're not basing their decisions based on determinism. Like you can't tell, well, guys, guess what? I was predetermined by the laws of nature and physics, or by my nature to murder someone. Now, is it maybe potentially true that you probably had family members that were murderers, or
It could be
that?
a psychological determination. I mean, sorry, determinism.
But yes, yes, and maybe, or maybe you have a mental illness that was already predetermined, and maybe with a mental illness, maybe your sentence won't be as big, but legal systems are taking you, they're making you accountable. They're making you accountable,
Because there's
and
some type of free will behind it, regardless of there being a psychological determinism that influenced it.
correct. Yeah, yeah. They're making you accountable because they're saying free will does exist. Now, if you want to maybe say your story, your background of your genes, your nurture. Now, I'm not a lawyer. Maybe the judge or the jury, maybe they'll take that into consideration. Maybe, but our legal system that we run today, right, is what you said, based on free will. And I
Yeah.
don't believe everything is predetermined. Now, I did mention earlier, a lot of things are already predetermined. Like you don't choose who your mom and dad are, be what country you're gonna be born, and so forth. You don't determine that. So yeah, that is predetermined on a theological level. But your free will to choose between good and bad and to act upon it, I'm saying that is your free will.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
So let's focus on that. Let's
Okay,
go
go.
into the theological ways of viewing this.
Okay.
How, how would you answer when I was able to break down the determinism when it came to theology?
Hmm.
If God is all knowing and already knows everything that's going to happen, how
Hmm.
can we truly have free will?
Okay. So that's a good question, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
So I wrote something here. Okay. So I'm gonna go with a different. I'm gonna explain a couple of different answers
Yeah, because
that.
I don't believe that there's a concrete, full, correct, someone knows answer because it's debated even in religions itself.
No, correct. Yes, I would say this. Well, first of all, in Judaism, most things are debated because when you struggle or you debate in the text, when you struggle in the text, the struggle is a form of worship to God because we're struggling to get to the truth
Right.
by debating. And we're not using like ad hominem fallacies. We're just trying to debate the content of the Torah or the oral law to get to the truth, right? Okay.
Right.
So now Judaism, now there are different answers because there are different perspectives on how to look at this, right? Which is fascinating. And I would also say Christianity has this as well. And I would even say there's a lot of similarities on the different perspectives on how Christianity and Judaism would look at free will, depending on what kind of denomination you are in Christianity. Okay. So
Gotcha.
so, like for example, a Calvinist would it says that
Hmm.
things are predetermined already, right?
Yeah,
And
like God decides who's already going to be saved in a sense.
correct. They even have an acronym called TULIP, and one of the I think P is the predestination. And I forgot. I read this a while back when I read a systematic theological book on something, but whatever. Let's put that to a side.
Because
Okay.
Calvinism falls more in Christianity, correct?
Calvinism is a branch of
It is
Christianity.
a
That's
branch in
correct.
Christianity.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
correct.
Mhm.
Correct. But it is a very controversial one. Of Calvinism, very controversial. Like, oh, God already chose the one He's choosing, really? But whatever. Let's put that to a side.
Yeah, that's a bit weird.
Yeah, yeah. It's very intense. Okay, so let me first start with one by a very famous philosopher and rabbi called Rabbi Sadia Gaon. and he coined it called the logical compatibility theory. Now, I also just I want to preface, a lot of these answers are not complete. Like they only go to a certain point, so I might like add other details as well just to fill in the blanks from other people, but I'll mention who's who. Okay, so for
Okay.
example, and I will mention what is the predominant view in Judaism, though. I will mention at the end what is the predominant view on how to look at this. Okay,
Like what majority people
what's the
believe.
majority way to look at this, right? Now,
Gotcha.
so Rabbi Sadia Gaon, interesting enough, he's mentioned with his teachings that God's knowledge does not cause human decision, does not cause it. So him and other people like Maimonides and a lot of other people within Judaism, and this is one big view in Judaism, is that God, divine foreknowledge, God knows everything. He knows what you're thinking. He knows what you're going to do and why you made the decision. What was your intention, right? He knows it all. He knows it. You can't hide anything. But just because God knowledge, just because He knows all this, He didn't make you make. He didn't cause you to know to make that decision. And for example, two examples. I think I mentioned this before. One analogy was, for example, you know, Aaron, that tomorrow the sun's going to rise. Your knowledge of tomorrow, right, that the sun's going to come out and the stars will then come out and the moon, all that stuff. Your knowledge of the system, of the solar system, let's say, and the sun and the moon and the stars, your knowledge doesn't make the sun go up tomorrow. But I don't. But you have knowledge about tomorrow. You have you have the knowledge, but your knowledge didn't cause it. So the same thing with God. God knows it all, but He's letting us do it. There is no contradiction, according to this view. There is no contradiction between God knowing everything and what decision you decide to do, because His knowledge does not cause it. Any questions or thoughts or comments?
We know the sun is gonna come up tomorrow because it's consistent and it has to show up every day for us to live.
Correct.
I
That's
mean,
true.
right?
Yes.
And there's science behind it on why it shows up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And therefore we learn how our solar eclipse
Solar
works.
eclipse.
Not the solar eclipse, sorry. Our
So
solar system.
wow. Yeah. Yeah, and
Therefore,
how nature works.
how our solar system works, right?
Uh-huh.
That being said, we don't know anything else that's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, we ignore obviously we know the moon, we know the stars, right? That's already predetermined in a sense
Well, yeah.
that it is going to happen, while other stuff are still left blank. Maybe God knows, but we don't.
Yeah, but can't you say like, okay, putting the laws of nature, because you said they're being
Okay.
consistent. Yeah. Now, of course, let's put the exception to a side. We're like, we don't know if tomorrow we're gonna wake up, right? In the morning, right?
Okay, yeah.
But
Only God knows.
you know, correct, only God. But you know that tomorrow you're gonna wake up and go to work. Like
But that's
you
the
know,
plan, yes.
correct. But okay, but putting the exception that you're not gonna wake up tomorrow,
Okay.
right? Or like there's Armageddon, right? Okay, fine, because there's always a possibility, right? Fine, but you know that you're gonna wake up tomorrow. But so you already know what's gonna happen tomorrow. So does your
No,
knowledge?
you assume
What do you
you're
mean? I
gonna wake up
assume.
tomorrow. You assume you're gonna wake up tomorrow. You hope
Oh
to wake up tomorrow.
yes, but that's what I'm saying. Let's put away like you're gonna die tomorrow or Armageddon,
Okay.
like crazy situations.
Yeah, put that as the exception to the side. Okay. So what's your question?
So like you know that tomorrow you're gonna go to work, right? That's your
Okay.
knowledge.
Yes.
So you know that's gonna happen tomorrow, right? And you know that
Yes, because
tomorrow.
I have a schedule.
That's correct. So your knowledge of tomorrow, right?
But that's a very general thing.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Let me give you a very. I think I mentioned this other example to you about the bank robbery. You ready? Let's say. Do you remember?
Yes.
But
Yeah. Let's say it again. Say it again.
I'll say it again. let's say I have a time travel machine in front of me, and I can go to tomorrow, and I could see that tomorrow a bank robbery is going to happen, I don't know, at a certain bank near my house. I use the machine, I go forward in time, and I
Hmm.
see, hey, on February 24th, which is tomorrow, right? February 24th, there's going to be a bank robbery at this time in this bank. And then I go back in time. But I don't do anything. I don't call the cops, I don't do anything. Is the bank robbery still going to happen tomorrow? Yes. But now, did you cause it? No, you didn't cause it, right? Now, how do I know it's going to happen? Because you already went into the future. Because I took the time machine, I saw what's going to happen tomorrow, so
Hmm.
so nothing's going to change. I know what's going to happen. I know the bank robbery is going to happen tomorrow, but I come
Uh-huh.
back, but I don't do anything. Did my knowledge of the bank robbery, did I cause that?
Your knowledge didn't cause that, but you as the creator,
But I'm not the creator.
well, no, because you're giving me an example,
Yeah, correct.
right?
The bank
And
robbery, yes.
we're obviously in the theological category right now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you as in a sense as a creator, your knowledge of something doesn't in a sense make you at fault that something is going to happen.
Correct. Yes. Uh-huh.
But you already it's let me try to find the words for this. Um you already knew this was going to happen. You created the world and have shaped the life of someone else and their future. So like you know it's going to happen. It wasn't a it's not a choice, it's not free will for that person in a sense because you have the knowledge, but you also set that up to happen in a sense. And
but
please, God forbid, I'm not trying to blame you for anything.
yeah,
But
God, this is just a podcast. We're just
this
talking
is
right now. We're just talking right now, right? No, but that's my. But you kind of made my point two ways. Number one, you said it because of my knowledge, I didn't cause them to make the bank robbery tomorrow. Now, right?
yes, but you're still you had the knowledge, but someone had to set up this future thing to happen.
Okay, yeah, okay. I know where you're going with this. No, okay, but
Okay.
before we get there, okay,
Okay.
but you, I know, I see where you're going because you're
Yes, I
saying
mhm.
what?
No, no, I was gonna say I agree with the knowledge part, but
Okay, so now let's take me out of the example, and now let's put God because that's what we're really talking about. Hello, hello.
I think. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hold on.
Yeah, I hear that noise.
My headphones went out. I don't know why.
I hear noise in the background.
Hold up. Sorry about that.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're back on track. So we just cut that out. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So you and I agree. My knowledge of tomorrow's event
Hmm.
did not cause the bank robbery, correct?
Yes, the knowledge didn't
Okay.
cause it. Yes.
Now, before we get to your third step, let's go to the second one.
Okay.
So, if we're gonna say that, so if God saw that tomorrow there's gonna be a bank robbery, He knows it. Just talking about knowledge before we get into creation, as you're talking about, because He created everyone. And so far, God's knowledge, if God knows that tomorrow that's gonna happen, did He cause it? He knows it. You're right. He knows it. But did He cause it in this
And
example?
doesn't interfere. That's joking.
No, no, and He doesn't interfere. Now, interesting. I just
But
want. I
we
just
would
was.
we
Go ahead.
would blame somebody. God, this
Well,
is a different
yeah,
conversation. We would have blamed somebody in the real world if they knew
we
something
would
was going to happen and they decided
correct.
not to act upon it, right? But this
One
is
hundred
God.
percent.
This is the
One hundred
difference.
percent. If I knew of the bank robbery and I didn't say anything, and then they found out that I knew, I would be an accomplice. So one
Yeah.
hundred percent, yes, right. But putting that to aside, so if God saw that tomorrow that's going to happen, right, and he doesn't interfere, he didn't cause it because they were going to do it anyway, because they were like, oh, the robbers are like, we're going to rob the bank. That's our free will. We want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, God's not. So what he's saying here is that the knowledge, yes, God knows everything. He knows it. Yes. He knows you're going to mess up. He knows specifically that you're going to go rob the bank. But just because he knows it doesn't mean he's making you do it, because you use your own free will to make that decision.
I use my own free will, but in a sense, someone wrote that story for me of what I was going to do.
Okay, now let's tackle this one. Which, because what you're saying, tell me if I'm right. You're saying, okay, so but God, if he created everything, and he's all powerful, and he's all knowing, and right, and he put me for a certain family, he knows what my tendencies are, he knows all this stuff about me, then clearly he knows, and I'm gonna do this tomorrow. Well, he made me do it because he created me this way. Is that what you're saying?
Yes and no. In a sense,
Oh.
if
So you explain it again.
yes to that, but God created me and already knows what's going to happen tomorrow. It's like, to put it into an illustration, this is already written. This book here is already written, right? And this is chapter 9 of Aaron's life, and this is what's going to happen. Boom, 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 right? As an example, right? Just to give an illustration so people can understand where I'm coming from. This is what's going to happen. Boom, boom, boom. So like, that's going to happen. I don't necessarily have the free will to make a decision on what I want to do tomorrow. It's already written, in a sense. He already knows what I'm going to do. Either that's based on the way I grew up, habits, what I lean towards, my intention. Makes sense, but it's already written that I'm going to do it. It's already going to happen. I just haven't made that decision to do it, but it's there. It's right there. If God were to become an editor, not an editor, but an author of my book, in a sense, which he is, he knows that in this page I did this, or I'm going to do this. I just haven't reached that time of my life yet.
To make that free will decision.
To make that free will decision.
Okay. So perfect. This is a great question. I would say next is to answer that, right? Because I'm trying to go in parts. To answer that, now I'm going to throw in another perspective, which is Maimonides' perspective, the Rambam, because he's going to answer exactly what you're saying here. So he says two things. Number one, the reason we come to this question, because also Rambam, by the way, also does not believe that there's a contradiction. He doesn't believe, as long as what I saw so far in my research of his writings, he does not see a contradiction between free will and divine foreknowledge. Now, what he does say is that superficially, initially, we're going to fall into this question, which it looks like a contradiction. But he says we as humans fall into this because of two reasons. Number one, we fall into this error or this way of thinking as a fallacy for two reasons. Number one, because we are not distinguishing the difference between human and God knowledge, and we are seeing God as within time, and that's a mistake. If we want to answer this question, we need to see God outside of time and see the difference between godly and human knowledge to answer this question. So far, so good?
Kind of, yes.
Okay, so let me explain. So in a nutshell, what he says is this, and I think the second part is going to hit your question more, which is the time thing. What is the difference between human knowledge and God knowledge? Human knowledge, in order for us humans to acquire new knowledge, how do we get new knowledge, Aaron?
Studying,
researching, observing, learning, whatever, right? Now, every day we might learn something new, or we might forget something new, but does that change our essence, our inner self? No, we just forgot something, or we learned something. Now, God is the opposite. God knows the infinite. He knows the finite. He knows things that have not come into existence yet. We obviously don't know that. But also, God doesn't learn new things. Now, I will mention this little caveat. The
It's
reason
crazy.
why, which is crazy, if you start to think about it. The reason why Rambam, Maimonides, and the first rabbi I mentioned, Rabbi Saadia Gaon, are talking this way is because what they're trying to avoid is to say that God learns new things or that a God can acquire new knowledge. Because if God is learning new things every day, then he's not God. Then he's not
He's
all
not all
knowing.
knowing.
He's not all
Yeah.
knowing, right? So, so Rambam says, okay, God doesn't learn by observing or by studying or learning. He knows it all already. Why? Because his knowledge is a part of his essence. God is knowledge. God is the subject of knowledge. God is knowledge. God, his essence is knowledge. He's not learning anything new. And there's also a lot of different verses that do talk about this, like in Malachi chapter 3, verse 6, that says that God doesn't change, right? So if God doesn't change, and he knows all the finite, infinite, and he's not learning anything, then he knows it all already. Now, obviously, we as humans, we also don't know how God thinks or how he operates, obviously, right? As
Because he's
Isaiah chapter
divine.
He's divine, as Isaiah chapter 55 says. So Rambam is also saying, like, listen, we're never gonna really get a complete answer. We're only gonna go up to a certain point because we can't reach the metaphysical realm. We just can't, but have this knowledge. And now here comes the part that's gonna answer your question, is this. God is outside of time. What does that mean? God, for God, the past, the present, and the future is all the same and it's happening at the same time, right? Uh, 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 One of the first things that God created in Genesis is time, right? So when we think like this, like the question you ask, but yeah, but if God created things from the beginning and he knows that at this point I'm going to make this mistake, then isn't everything predetermined? So no, because for God, God doesn't have a future or a past. Everything is happening to him right now. So God has seen your entire life from the beginning to the end right now, according to Judaism. Because God is outside of time. He's the creator of time. He's outside of time. So time doesn't control him. We as humans, we are bound by time. There is a past, there is a present, and there is a future. And the only way for us, like there is no way for us to know tomorrow. There is no way unless tomorrow already happened, but then that's not the future anymore. That's the present.
Right.
But for
Yeah.
God, the reason why this question, according to the Rambam and other thinkers, is because God is outside of time. So the contradiction only exists from a human perspective, not from a godly perspective, because everything is happening right now for God. He's seeing everything right now. The past, present, future is happening all right now for God. It's all happening. It's like, and I'll end with this, and then you can give me
Hmm.
your thoughts.
Yeah.
The example of if you're in a helicopter and you're above in the helicopter and you see three cars, you see the first car, the second, the third, and you see one car is all the way in the front, 2 miles ahead, the middle one's in the middle, and the last car is like 3 miles back. Can the car in the back, can he see the one in front of him or two in front of him? No, he can't. He can only
Hmm.
see what's in front of him, which is is right there. But you're above in the helicopter, you see the front car, the second car, and the third car. So you can see it all. You see the whole picture, right?
I see what you're saying, and that
Yes.
makes sense. Where you could see the past, the present, and the future,
Hmm.
but that example is still happening all in the present. You get what I'm
Correct.
saying?
Yeah, because we're here in this world. Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm saying, I'm
But
using.
it's
Yeah.
an illustration to define that you can't see what's happening ahead of you, but I can, in a sense.
Correct. Correct.
Got
Correct.
you.
So now that perspective is the one that's saying that there is no contradiction between free will and foreknowledge,
Hmm.
right? Now, someone might say, and I'll be upfront. Someone might say, but yeah, but just okay, but so you're using the excuse, right? That
Hmm.
we're never going to understand this because God is so all knowing and He's in a different realm. We're not going to understand.
Yeah,
So,
that's kind of where I was falling into too, where like
which
because
is,
it's so
yeah.
godly and he's out of time. He's not in time, right? He's out of
Mhm.
time because he is the creator of time. Therefore, that is basically something we'll never be able to understand on how he's past, present, and future, and how everything for him is happening all at the same time. But for us, like, we are controlled by time, and that is something he created, but he's out of. We do have a past, present, future.
Correct. But God
So
doesn't.
that's just, but God doesn't. So that's what makes it a little bit like, I guess that's the reason we don't understand it, because we don't fall into the same realm of things.
Correct.
Therefore, we're not capable of understanding how God really operates, or what it really means to be in the past, present, and future.
Yes, and that's not our fault because we're not in
That's
that
not our
realm.
fault, obviously. Yeah.
I always like to think of it. It's like imagine if you had to explain colors to a blind person. How would you do it? Right? So, I mean, maybe there's a way. I wouldn't know how to do
No.
it. Yeah, red is red. But what's red? But so like
Like, how do you explain bright to black? How do you explain dark to, like, well, you could probably explain dark to.
yeah, you just say, "What the hell do you see?" Oh, I see nothing. That's darkness. Okay. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Right? But
Well,
like,
yeah, you're not blind, but you would imagine if I have my eyes closed,
then that's dark. Darkness is just the absence of light,
and
right?
then maybe put some light in their face and be like, do you see some type of, like, brightness in a sense? Does the darkness get a little bit lighter? I
Well,
don't know.
well, well. Some people are not completely blind, so they might be able to see it
Yeah,
peripherally or some
but I
otherwise,
guess
right?
the complete blind is the is where, how would you explain it? It's
And the
almost
only
impossible.
reason I brought that up is because that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to explain something that's very difficult because we're not in that realm, right? Now, now, that is one perspective in Judaism on how to look at free will. Now, here comes the other perspective that we spoke about. The
Okay.
other way of looking at it is there were other thinkers and ways of looking at this where it's like, hey, there actually might be a little bit of a problem here. Divine foreknowledge and free will. So there might
Mhm.
be a little bit of a contradiction. So how do we solve it? Or like the question you asked, right? So there was another thinker called Rabbi Abraham ben David, right? Like Patrick Ben David, right? Um, what he has something called the limited foreknowledge theory. So he actually limits foreknowledge, the divine foreknowledge. And what he says is that God chooses to limit his foreknowledge
Mhm.
to allow for free will. Now, now what does that mean? So what it means is that God knows your inclinations, he knows your
Mhm.
tendencies,
Right.
and he might even know all the decisions that are in front of you, right? So
Mhm.
right, but he doesn't know what you're going to pick at the end of the day. He won't know what you pick. So that's one way of looking at it, right? Another way to look at it is that God, because he knows your tendencies, how you behave, right? He kind of knows he knows your thoughts and so forth, and he knows what decisions are in front of you. But because he knows you so well, he can predict accurately what you're going to do, right? He can predict
Well,
what you're going to choose.
but that's him limiting himself
That,
while
but that's
limiting himself.
because at the end of the day, he does. There isn't 100% sure that you're going to pick that because you might pick it, you might change it. It could be
Right.
contingent, right?
Hmm.
But he can predict all these stuffs. Why? Because I wrote it down here.
I'm not 100% sure about the predicting.
Well, I just use that word, but you didn't say the whole thing. He predicted accurately, so he always predicts accurately what you're going to do because he knows you so
But
well.
but by using predict, you're also assuming, no, by using the word predict, there is an opening for a wrong, and God can't be wrong.
Or maybe I just used the wrong words. Maybe it's not predicting. Maybe it's a different word. But how do I say
That's
this?
why
Uh,
I'm not, I get where you're going to, or I get where
yeah.
you're trying to get at. Maybe predict is the wrong word, but, like, it wouldn't be assume either, because then how is he all knowing? But
So, uh huh.
Yeah, no, tell me.
Well, he is all knowing because he limited himself on purpose, so that
Right.
so you could have free will. Because free will is so important, and actually, free will is a huge fundamental principle in the Bible. It really is. It it's a
Mhm.
huge, a sacrosanct fundamental principle in the Bible to have free will. It is.
I think like the because I remember having this debate with you in person. I think what I came down to be able to understand it from the humanly perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not able to understand the divine, the godly way of viewing things because we're in time.
Mm-hmm.
I took a little bit from everybody in a sense.
Okay.
God is all knowing. And you tell me if this follows more the Ramadan or the Bet David one you said?
Oh, Rambam.
Ramban.
Uh-huh.
If okay, so God is all knowing, but
Yes.
God has used his own power to give you the free will of certain areas in your future to be blank. Meaning anytime you using free will, meaning wrong between choosing between wrong or right,
Mm-hmm.
God, because he's almighty and all knowing, he has used his power in a sense against him where he could know what that future decision of yours can be,
But
but
he limits himself.
he limits himself. He has used the power against him to give you that free will, in where now that area of your life, if it's as an example, as a previous illustration I use, if it's written in a book, that area or that decision between right or wrong in your life is blank and is waiting for an upcoming decision on what you're going to do.
Yeah, that's definitely on the second one. That is part of the limited foreknowledge like component
Limited foreknowledge component. Okay.
where God is stopping himself to see the whole picture. But of
Hmm.
course, if God wanted to take away that his
Of
own
course, yeah.
limited,
If you
he could
wanted to
do
take
it.
away, he could do it, but because he wants to give us that free will,
Yes.
he decides to do that. At
Which
least
is
that's the probably if we wanted to understand things from the human perspective and not include the whole godly version of things,
mhm.
then I believe that's like the closest thing we could ever get to, or
I
we've
and I
got into.
and I think that is a kosher answer. That is definitely a viewpoint in Judaism, 100%. To limit foreknowledge. I would also say that another way of looking at it with the limited foreknowledge is that God, obviously the whole thing you said where he stops himself, right? But also God knows, well, maybe this goes a little bit further more.
Okay.
You tell me what you think. God knows the potential. What I'm saying is that yes, he doesn't know
Okay.
what decision you're going to make, but he knows the potentiality. But at the end of the day, he needs to see you make the decision, and then he'll know it.
Right. So that doesn't make him wrong because
No.
he's right. That doesn't make him wrong because he's limited himself
Mm-hmm.
to be able to see what you are going to do. But because he's limited himself and now you have this blank space in your life, therefore gives you that free will to make a decision on what you're going to do. But because he knows you so well and because he has limited himself
Mm-hmm.
into seeing if he could um seeing if he limited himself on seeing on what you're going to do,
Mm-hmm.
he can see what the potentiality is of your decision, of your upcoming decision going to be.
Correct. And I want to give you one example, if you don't mind.
Okay.
It's in
Yeah.
Genesis, chapter 22, verses 12.
Which is crazy because I was reading something now that you remind me of Genesis.
Oh, really?
It's it I was reading something when I was studying. I was like, man, like did God know about Adam and Eve, right? In a sense, right? like
Oh, bro,
beforehand.
we could do a whole episode on that because there's a lot of
Right.
interesting answers on that. On that, did God know that Adam and Eve was going to mess up?
Right. And did that knowledge of knowing that you're going to mess up lead us into this world in a sense? And was
And
that planned or was it not planned? So therefore, that's why, which is like you said, a whole debate we could have, because that's the beginning of time. That is what has led us all the way to here where we are present today
yes, from a theological perspective,
from a
yes.
theological perspective. So like the answer based off if God knows or not is like very important, because if we bring it down to them, like to that event, is like we could break it down like severely on like if God knew that this whole imperfect world was coming or not.
And then something else you can ask is, did Adam and Eve, did they really have free will when they were in the Garden of Eden? Did they or not? I mean, we're not going to talk about that now, but I'm just saying, this question leads to that question, and then we can go into a rabbit hole. And Judaism does have an answer for this.
Mm,
And it is different from Christianity, actually. They have a different answer from Christianity. Um,
gotcha.
Maybe we'll do that for another episode if you're interested in doing that.
Okay, okay, okay,
If
for
you are,
sure.
then you let me know, because you're right. It gets intense. Um,
Like, wow, did God know we were gonna fall into this rabbit hole of an imperfect world? It's crazy, but yeah.
Well, if you want the answer, the ethics of the fathers answer that question very easily. I'm not gonna give the answer here, but you know that blue book you were reading here in Colorado,
Hmm.
the ethics of the fathers,
Yeah.
which is a
Oh,
famous.
it gives.
It,
Oh, the
it,
one
it
I was reading.
yeah, it does. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't
to
know.
well, yeah,
Okay,
you
so
didn't read the whole book, but yeah,
right, I was
very
reading.
famous
I was
Jewish book.
reading a lot of it, but I didn't read. I don't remember getting to that part.
Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry. So, but we could definitely do an episode on that. But going back,
Okay.
so the text I wanted to read was Genesis 22:12,
Okay.
which actually a lot of the Jewish thinkers that prove the limited foreknowledge theory, or the way of looking at the perspective, use this verse, this story, which is
Okay.
when God tells Abraham, it's the whole story of almost the sacrifice of Isaac, almost, right?
Okay. Yeah. I feel like I'm reminiscing right now.
So,
Uh-huh.
whatever, God sends the angel and he says, don't kill
Yeah.
your son Isaac. Don't kill him, right?
Yeah.
So then Genesis 22:12, I'm reading from the New Revised Standard Version Bible, says, he said, do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, to Isaac, right?
Yeah.
For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And the part I want to focus is was, now I know that you fear God. What do you mean now you know? Didn't you
So
always
he,
know?
or did he not? Right.
So then,
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
so the limited foreknowledge thinking is, well, God limits himself and he knows what's your potential. But there's a difference between your potential and what you actually do. So God knew Abraham's potential, but he needed to see it happen with this test. Obviously, he doesn't kill his son, and now God says, "Now I know. Now I know that you do fear me and you love me," and so forth, right? So, and there's other examples that I could give. I'm not going to go into it now that prove the limited foreknowledge theory. So yeah,
That's a great example. That's a great example.
it
If
is
it,
an amazing one. I
he
I
he
think.
he used like the words were like now I know. It's like as if you didn't know, which kind of
Correct.
like puts you thinking. I'm like, okay, so if you didn't know, then there's a high probability of you limiting your knowledge just to give us the opportunity of having free will.
Correct. Because what is God doing according to this perspective? He knows the possibilities of, right, but he doesn't know the ultimate choice you're going to make because he limited himself on purpose so that there is no conflict between God's foreknowledge and your free will. Because at the end of the day, it is super important in the Bible that we as humans have free will. Because if you think about it, if we don't have free will, which, but by the way, this is an argument I would say from a theological perspective. If someone said we don't have free will, I would say, well, right, if we don't have free will, then what was the point of God giving the Jewish people, for example, the 613 commandments, the mitzvot, like do this, put on tefillin, give charity, right? Avoid murder, avoid kidnapping, adultery, avoid
Mhm.
this, avoid that. So like, if you're giving humans commandments and prohibitions, then that means they can choose if they want to do it or not, which means they need to have free will. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. But then if we dive even deeper, right?
Okay, go.
God is limiting himself
Correct. To knowing what you're gonna do, you're
to
saying.
knowing what you're gonna do
Mhm.
in this way of
Scenario.
thinking, right? In
Okay.
this scenario. He is limiting himself,
Mm-hmm.
but behind that limit, there's an answer.
Yes, but he stopped himself from seeing.
Which which gives us free will because he doesn't know because he has stopped himself.
Mm-hmm.
But behind that stopping yourself, there is an answer in what you're gonna do.
Yeah, if you're gonna do the mitzvah, you're gonna do the commandment or not, or you're gonna avoid the prohibition, correct?
Right. So then
Yes.
is it really free will?
Of course it is. Of course it is. Because he
Because
doesn't
all
know. He doesn't know.
no, but it's
And also you're still deciding if you want to do it or not. Because
but this is wrong.
also, okay, go.
No, tell me, and then I'm gonna challenge you. Go.
Because these are not mundane matters. This is like, okay, do I actively want to give charity to this person? Now,
Right.
right? Or other big things. So you should actually have to think about it consciously, right?
Hmm.
But God has stopped himself from not knowing what you're going to do. So you do have free will because you're going to decide. Because he God cannot make you do something because he can't make you do something, like force you to do it. Right now, maybe there are exceptions to the rule, which there are exceptions, but I'm talking about like normal. God cannot force you to do something because he needs you to do it. He needs you to make
Hmm.
the decision
Hmm.
because then it completely explodes on itself. But yeah, tell me.
So this is where my challenge comes.
Okay, go.
Illustration. Same illustration I'm gonna use, the book
The little
illustration.
booklet. Okay, go.
It's written here, your life,
Uh-huh.
right? Let's just use as an example that I'm God. Just as an
Okay.
example. I'm not. Just to
Okay.
clarify that, please. It's already written here what I have for your life out is, right? Right
Uh-huh.
here. You're gonna be a douchebag and you're gonna do bad things. I'm joking.
Okay.
But me, as God,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna use a power to blind myself. Therefore, I never knew or I never will know what you're gonna do until you make that decision, right?
Okay.
Right? That's what I'm gonna do. But behind that limited power, there is a writing that says what you're exactly gonna do.
Okay. Where are you getting this concept that the writing's already there? It's just he covered it up with another with his hand, let's say. Where you
Because
get
he's
that?
all powerful, meaning that he's all powerful. Therefore, either way, he's limiting himself. He could see, if he wanted to, what decision you're gonna make, because he's all powerful. He's almighty, correct? So if he decided to take away that power away from himself, right, of limiting himself, he could see what decision you're going to make. Therefore, there is something, in a sense, to illustrate it, something already written on the decision that you're going to make.
Uh-huh.
Except that I have limited myself to not be able to see it. Therefore, it could give the real definition of what free will actually is. Or I'm actually giving you free will because I don't know what you're going to do. Either way, but I can know if I decided not to limit myself. Therefore, meaning that there is already something predetermined.
Because he knows what you're
Because if he
mm,
decided to take away that limited power, he would be able to see what you're gonna do. But he's obviously not doing that. Obviously, in this mentality, in this perspective, in this way of thinking, he's not. He hasn't done that, which is great because it gives us free will in a sense. But if he decided to not limit himself and take away the blanks, he could actually, because he's almighty, he could see what you're actually going to do. So meaning he is giving us free will because he has decided, in a sense, to blind himself. But if he decided to not do that because he is almighty and all powerful,
Mm-hmm.
and he took away that power to limit himself, there would already be something set on what you're going to do.
Okay, but you keep looking at the situation within time, because you're saying
With
because you're saying because you're seeing him within time. But remember, for him, this is not the future for him.
I
This is
know,
not
and
the future.
that's where we fall into the answer of both rabbis, of
Or both big ways of looking at it from Judaism.
right,
That's true.
or
That's
both
true.
ways of looking at it, where he's limiting himself, and that gives us free will. But if we dive deeper into him not limiting himself, therefore there is a predetermined answer on what you're going to do or decision you're going to make if he decided to not limit himself. But then we don't understand what time is because God is living in the past, present, and future while we are in time.
Yeah, because
So
because
it falls in both answers at the end of the day, depending on how deep we dig.
correct. So definitely the last part you said, that's true. I definitely agree with that. Now I just want, like, whoever's listening, that right that the answers I'm giving, the perspectives I'm giving, is not just one rabbi and
Of
another
course,
rabbi.
yeah.
No, multiple
Many.
agree with both of them, and there's a lot of scriptures and verses and from the Torah and oral law and the Hebrew Bible that support this. But we're just having a conversation. So what I would say is this: is that the reason we keep having this question is because because it sounds like you're saying, like, if God were to take it away, it's already there. What I'm going to do, like, let's say next year, it's already
Mm,
there. And yes, from a human perspective, yes, there is a contradiction between the foreknowledge and the free will, right? Because if you already know what I'm going to do next year, you just happen to cover it, it's already there. So there is a contradiction, but that's because we're looking at it within time. That's because we're looking at human knowledge. But if we're looking at it from divine knowledge, from the God realm, or like out of time, then it's not a contradiction, because for God, this is not happening next year. He's not writing, "Oh, Aaron's gonna give 20% of charity next year," because it's happening to him right. He's seeing it right now. He's seeing it right now. So I definitely, it is a contradiction if we're looking at human knowledge, right? But because in this world, in this realm, 100%, I can't say anything. But because we're looking at the different realm, and remember Isaiah 55:8, your ways are not God's ways. God's thoughts are not our thoughts. And the way he does things, we're never going to understand it. It's just, that's why there's so many texts on this, because you are not the only thinker or person who was like, wait, why is there suffering? Why is there evil? Is there really free will? All these huge questions we're talking about, or we will talk about in future episodes. A lot of people in the Bible, prophets and other big people, they ask the same questions. And I feel like we're only going to get hints. But your question is because we're falling into that within time paradox, or that issue. So yeah. But I do want to say that at the end of the day, Judaism accepts something called what's called the point of freedom. The point of freedom. Nekudat bechira. And when I explain it, you're going to understand it. The point of freedom, which is our decisions, our free will. Is it really free? And the answer is it depends. Because it really falls into three categories. A lot of our free will decisions is going to be a product of our genetics, let's say, genetics, or our right? Nature, nurture, maybe societal pressure, right? And maybe some of our free will decisions will be from our own volition. So Judaism accepts all that. We're basically, it's like the free will decisions we're making, even the moral ones, sometimes we make them because we were influenced, or we were raised a certain way, or we were primed a certain way, right? Or we grew up a certain way, or in a certain country, in a certain culture. So we're gonna make decisions, our free will decisions, based on a mix of those things. And most people live their lives habitually without actively using their free will. Because remember, to use your free will, you need to use your free will, as I've said before, right? So at the end of the day, Judaism says again and again that
Mhm.
most of our decisions, even the free will ones, a lot of times they're not completely free because humans, it's very easy to influence or prime humans. So yeah.
Mm.
And when God judges us, he takes into account our nature, how we were raised, what country, our culture, right? There's a text in the book of Job, I think chapter 31. I could be wrong, but I know it's in the book of Job where we see this concept that God, when he judges, he's going to judge you with everything together, right? That's the difference between the heavenly court or God court versus the human court. The human court can only judge you by the action you did right now. A lot of times the courts can't really look at the big they can, but they can't take everything into account because they can't see everything. God will take
Yeah,
everything into account and he will judge you based off that. So yeah.
which is interesting because obviously, God being Almighty, He's going to be able to judge you accordingly,
Correct.
just because He's able to see everything,
Correct.
intention, wants. Did you have an inclination for it or not? Was it maliciously done or not?
Yes.
Right. And that's why I find it interesting. You're saying the court can only do so much, right? We can
Yes.
only base off what we see or the evidence that we have, but God is it's just a whole different story where
A hundred.
he's able to read the heart and everything. So
And that's why it's very difficult when I hear, for example, atheists or Christians, because you'll see this debate a lot within Christians and atheists, where the atheists will say, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them will say, like, determinism is yes, no free will, right? Or God doesn't exist, right? And the Christian is like, God does exist, science can prove it, or nature can prove it, or free will does exist, right? But the thing is that a lot of these theological questions or things to look at, right? Those are above this world, or they're in a different realm, and you can't use science or an MRI machine to look at a soul or to look into free will because we don't have access to those things. We just don't have
right,
access, right? History, archaeology, right? Like all these soft and hard sciences can only measure what's observable, something tangible, something that we can see. We can only go so far. That's it. So it's very important that when we have these discussions, from what I've learned, is that we have to separate theological and maybe philosophical together, and maybe like the sciences we could put it to a side, right? But so far what I've seen and maybe what you've seen, and you could tell me what you think, the science has only proven, yes, we are making decisions or predicting things, but they're like small decisions, but not these huge free will decisions that we were talking about so far.
yeah. That's why I believe this topic is not obviously it's heavily debated, but it is just so interesting because science can only and then studies and research and experiments, at least when it comes to this topic and maybe a few others, can only establish an answer to a certain degree.
Correct.
It cannot go further because it's just not humanly possible, at least,
Mm-hmm.
right? Therefore, that's why I kept saying even at the beginning of the podcast, I'm gonna fall into theological no matter what, because it is like the closest answer we could get
Mm-hmm.
to what free will is, or at least in my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or what free will is. And at least what I don't know if you agree or not, but I think what we've been able to come to an understanding is that, like you said at the beginning, there's a mix of all things, and it could be true, meaning that some things are predetermined,
Yes.
while other things are free will.
Yes.
And we just have to establish what is the things that are predetermined and what are the things that are free will. And then when we dive into what free will actually is, that's when, for me, maybe for you as well, to get the most accurate answer, the closest answer possible to a human understanding, is where we have to leave aside the science and
Mm-hmm.
maybe the philosophical way of viewing it, and the closest answer we could get is through theology.
Yeah, theology, philosophy, they're very similar. They can go hand in hand.
Yeah, they can
Yeah,
go hand in hand, but
yeah.
I don't know. For this topic, I feel like just falls much more into theology.
Mm. So then I guess my question to you is, so what do you believe in now?
Hmm.
No sabe. Again.
Hmm. I in my life, I think the only time I've really gotten into this debate is in recent history, which is
Hmm.
now in my
Yes.
20s. I don't think
Yes.
I really debated this when I was younger, no matter how
Probably
religious I was.
probably not. Yeah.
Um, and I think through our discussion now, but obviously in person as we did, I was able
Correct.
to view, the Jewish way of looking at what free will actually is.
Hmm.
And it makes sense, even if we were just gonna boil it down to like the logical,
Hmm.
and which is something I like to do. I like to break things down to what logic is,
Hmm.
or what's the closest thing to a logical answer.
Hmm.
And this is one point of view that I was able to break down through, a Jewish way of viewing things, of thinking, where at least through the mix of this conversation, I'm able to see how some things are predetermined, some things are not, but we actually do have free will.
I definitely would agree with you. Yeah, 100%. And I would conclude with saying that once again, you're right. If we're speaking theologically, right, in the Hebrew Bible, there's so many verses and texts like Deuteronomy chapter 30, right? We have the Genesis chapter 4, potentially depending, the story of Adam and Eve, right? Uh, and again, maybe next time we'll do an episode on this, right? There's so many verses that, right, or just even the concept of teshuvah, of repentance, like Ezekiel chapter 18 and other verses that talk about that God, if you're wicked, God wants you to repent and come back to him, right? I would conclude with saying we do have free will. Yes, a lot of things are already predetermined from a theological perspective. Yes, we as humans, we can be primed, nature and nurture, and that can influence our decisions, our free will decisions a lot. And sometimes we as humans, we're going to make the decisions because we were pressured from society or from family, right? But we might say, oh no, we got it from our own minds. But in reality, it was really society or our families influence to think a certain way. So we make decisions based on that, right? Or sometimes we just live habitual lives and we never actually use our free will, right? Again, I'm giving all possibilities, but then sometimes we are going to use our own free will to make a decision what's good or bad and what we're going to do about it, right? And there's and that's that's the reality. That's how Judaism looks at it, the Hebrew Bible. But that's also reality. It's a mix of theological, but also a mix of actual science, right? A
Right.
different psychological neuroscience and even different biological studies that can prove this to a certain point. And I would say that um, I would say personally, um, well, first of all, the majority of Judaism does believe in the first view, though. I don't know if you knew that. The first view,
Really?
that there is no contradiction between divine foreknowledge and free will. There is no contradiction. It's just that we don't understand it, and God is out of time, and a lot more of the things that I
I thought
didn't
it would be the
mention.
second one, to be honest.
It's very debated, but again, they're both different, just
But
ways
like
of looking at it.
I could see why the first one could
A
play
hundred
a bigger
percent.
role.
100%. And I think I would lean more towards that one, potentially the first one, me personally. Again, there's so many other things I didn't mention, but I just wanted to give like an overview, right? But I would also want to say that according to different psychological studies, they've proven this, that if you prime someone and you kind of tell them, oh, guess what, we don't have free will, it makes people cheat more. It makes people make less moral decisions if you prime them telling them we actually don't have free will, right? Or if you, yeah. So let me. I actually have it written down here. Can I read it to you?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah. I have it right here, right here. Give me 1 second. Um, Okay, so here it is. Ready? Studies show, I copied and
Mm,
pasted this. Studies
okay.
show that people who believe in free will tend to act with a greater sense of moral responsibility than people who believe in determinism, who deny their
Oh yeah,
ability to control their destiny. There are 5 powerful studies that support this thesis, and they are cited in the Teenage Brain Self-Control by B.J. Cassie and Christina Cordell and the 2013 Psychological Science. Also, just simply exposing people to claims that free will is an illusion or it's fake can lead people to misbehave more. For example, cheating more or helping others less. Right? And again, there's more studies on this.
it makes
Uh,
sense
how so?
because well, determinism, right?
Mhm.
I would assume it's more of an atheistic point of view.
I don't know. Hmm.
I would assume it is.
Maybe not 100%, but yeah, definitely a lot more in the atheism agnostic view. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're more into theological way of thinking and you believe that there is free will, then at the same time, I believe you believe that there is
God.
not all there's God and there is consequences that not only involve life, but also with you and your relationship with God, depending
Uh-huh.
on the decision you make. And
Mm-hmm.
therefore, that goes to your mind and influences in your decision. Like, if a kid knows that this is going to make dad mad, I'm probably not going to do it because
Mm-hmm.
of the respect and the fear I might have for my dad,
Mm-hmm.
right? While the same thing applies for God from a theological perspective. Someone that believes in God and believes that free will that God gives us, then I must adhere to what God wants because I know that if I don't, that there could be different results,
Uh-huh.
right? Based on my beliefs. While determinism, it's more like, oh, that was supposed to happen.
Uh-huh.
There was nothing I could have done
Yes, because
in a
based on the laws
sense,
of nature, of physics, or
because based
whatever.
on the laws of nature, based on societal or based on how I was raised, yeah, this was just supposed to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
regardless of it being good or bad, it's like you don't think of like the consequences, I believe, because just because I'm assuming it's not really indirect with a theological way of viewing things, more maybe agnostic, atheistic
Mm-hmm.
realm. So I could definitely see why that study says that.
Oh, yeah,
Or I
100%.
don't know if you agree with that. It's just like,
So you're basically saying that if someone already believes in free will, they're gonna believe that there's consequences, that there's God. So if God is watching and I do something good or bad, and there's consequences. Of course, I'm gonna behave better because there's someone on top of me watching. There's a higher being watching. Is that correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. There's a higher being watching, and yeah, that's why I'm like, it just goes hand in hand with free will, with like the beliefs
Mm-hmm. But then it's
versus.
like, but then we might go down the rabbit hole that how do we know that God exists, right? What are the proofs from science,
Yeah.
theological, history, or like whatever other sciences that people like to use? Like, how do we prove that then, right? And also you mentioned, is morality objective? Is it from God, or do we make our own morality? How do we put meaning to these words, right? Or how do we form? Well, we actually spoke about how we form our belief systems, but how do we form our belief systems with all this? So you see, we go into a rabbit hole.
You go into a rabbit hole because
Yes,
now you're starting to bring out so many different things, right? Oh
which is
wait, does God
great. Which is
exist?
great.
This is that, and it's like it's a lot, and it's great. It's great, but if you're a person that doesn't believe in God, I don't want to talk to you. I'm just
So then, how would you? What is the most important thing you took out of this podcast? Then, this episode specifically. Tell us what's the biggest thing. Biggest thing.
it's the biggest thing that I took out of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Honestly, I think the biggest thing I was able to take out was to really try to understand how, which I'm still struggling with, but it's something that when you said it, it really like kind of stood out, was that God is not limited in time. God is past, present, and future. Therefore, that's why the way we are viewing things, the way we are judging things, it's not the way God sees it, it's not the way God views it. Therefore, that's one of the reasons why we may not understand things at its complete form right now.